I'm Corinne Doherty, and this is Iolo. We're very lucky to have him here at Agriculture and Bright. He's a guru of the environment and birds and all sorts. So we're very lucky to let me into it.
That's very kind of you. No, it's a pleasure.
Okay, so I've got some questions that I've written down, and they're sort of to help me with my schoolwork, but also more than that, because it's sort of my future and how I want to influence the environment and all.
Good man. Yeah.
Thank you. So, lots of wildlife, so I'm going to start. How potent do you think it is? Because I, as a teenager, I hear lots about it, but I don't really get to see all these Australian wildfires or anything like that firsthand. And I don't get to see all these species declining, because I'm only 15. So.
Yeah.
And I've only just sort of got introduced to a lot of that to a lot of that stuff. So, what does it mean to you?
That's a good question, because I blink and I think back, and I was your age. I was walking around the hills of mid Wales, looking at hay meadows. It wasn't all about wildlife. I loved my rugby, chased girls, did my usual stuff, did a bit of fishing and all this and all that. But wildlife has always been a huge part of my life. So I sort of recorded it up here as I grew up, the things that I saw. And watched so much wildlife, and I feel for you, I feel for your generation, because you don't realise what's already gone.
Yeah.
But similarly, I used to spend a lot of time with my Tide granddad and listen to his tales about what was there when he was a little lad, and already we lost so much.
Yeah.
So I think every generation I think misses out on what the generation before had seen and had grown up with, and all you can do is take my word for it, take the scientists' word for it, because now of course we've been monitoring for 30, 40, 50 years quite a few of our species. So as well as word of mouth, as well as my perceptions, we have actually got science, we've got facts to back that up now. And it is odd when you're young. It is odd when you're young, because you walk out and about and you think, quite a few birds around, there's quite a few trees around, what are they all on about? But honestly, it pales into insignificance compared to what was around when I was a young lad. Even here, I mean, I've been lucky to have grown up in mid Wales, but I've travelled all over Wales, even since I was a young lad. And even here, on the outskirts of Llandudno, Bodafon Fields, used to be full of lapwings there, and they've all gone. On the Great Orme, some of the brackeny areas used to be a really good place for a small canary-like bird called a yellowhammer. Right. Really bright, lovely little bird. They've gone. The whole lot have gone. So there have been changes all over Wales, all over the UK, all over the world since when I was your age, and it's incredibly sad, because as a proud Welshman growing up in mid Wales, I'm first language Welsh. The Wales is really important to me, the Welsh language is really important to me, Welsh culture is really important to me, but just as important, if not more so, is Welsh wildlife. Because I think when that goes, if it goes, and it's going fast, what we don't realise as a species is it's going to affect us in the end as well.
Yeah. And I feel like, because I'm young and growing up in a significantly more urbanised environment than if you lived here 50 years ago, it's a lot harder to tell, especially, or if you lived in London or any city, the urban sprawl, you wouldn't notice, because you're in the middle of it and it's going outwards.
But even people your age, I would imagine, see that urban sprawl growing every year. You see new houses going up, you see new roads being built. I was talking to a lady on the way in here now, up until the late 90s, and actually beyond that, up to the early 2000s, I used to come up and play rugby here, in the fields over the way. This wasn't here then. Yeah. This is a new school. This is 15 years old, this school. I was playing rugby up here before that, and I remember how this was then, driving up here. A lot more houses here now, a lot more factories, a lot more industrial units here. So it is changing constantly, all the time. For me, growing up in mid Wales, it's about habitat loss. It's mainly through agriculture, let's be honest. The intensification of agriculture. It's through the afforestation of a lot of the uplands, planting alien conifers in the hills. I remember all that happening. But for you here, it's probably more about urbanisation. Something which, to me, in mid Wales, was always quite alien. I sort of read about it happening in London and Cardiff and all these places, but I didn't see it in mid Wales. But it is going on.
That must make it really hard to educate if everywhere is different and everywhere has a different set of skills or a different information load that the people living there need to learn and understand.
It can be. It's getting the right message across to the right people in the right places.
Yeah.
But something is common to all of them, and that something is habitat loss, and that something is the loss of biodiversity, the loss of the variety of birds and mammals and plants and insects and fish that we've always had. And I sometimes sit back and I sort of look at pictures of Earth, and if you could design a planet and an Earth, it's an incredible place. It's such an amazing place. You're from the Amazon rainforest to the Great Barrier Reef, to the Sahara Desert, to the forests of West Wales, some of the oak woodlands there, and you just think, wow, that really is amazing. And we, in powerful individuals in powerful positions, just don't appreciate that. It's all very well thinking about, money, we're going to make more money, going to get more power, and a lot of them do. That's their focus. But sometimes you've got to step back from that and think, actually, if we carry on the way we are carrying on, money and power is going to mean absolutely nothing, because there's going to be nothing out there for them to gain. Nothing at all. So it's, and I know it sounds, we get accused often of being tree huggers. Here we are, he's another tree hugger, whatever. But it's not. I mean, it's not being. It's about life. Yeah. It is about life, And I'm all right. I'm 57 now. I've had a good life, but I really feel for people like you. I got two boys, 18, 21-year-old, and I really feel for them, because the mess that my generation and the several generations before me have made, it's going to be up to you to actually reverse that if you possibly can.
Yeah. So what you said a second ago really brought me on to this second point. And I was just in my art lesson, it's something I've just thought of. And there was a theme called neglected corners that you can explore in your art. And it drew me to nature. And would you consider nature to be neglected, and that's why there's all this trouble now? Or do you think that we didn't understand in the past, and now we're going to save nature and it's going to be A-okay? Or do you think it is massively neglected?
Cool, that's a really good question. I think neglected is probably not the right word, because if you neglect nature, and by neglect the definition of that is that you just ignore it, leave it alone, nature would thrive. You can see that in places like the Amazon rainforest. If we built a huge fence around it and left it, it would thrive. It would absolutely thrive without us in there. It's not neglect. I think it's exploitation of nature. We've always seen nature, we've always seen the earth really as something to conquer, something to exploit, something to make money out of, something to use for our own benefit. Even going way back, early man would have cut down trees, would have built fires, would have made spears, would have cleared clearings in the forest to attract the deer in, to hunt the deer. All of these things right through until now. So I think it's exploitation rather than neglect. If we just neglected it and left it well alone, it'd be a far better place, I think, now.
Right, yeah, thank you. How can we, as myself, Generation Z or a youth, do any good? Because we always hear turn the lights off, or don't leave your TV on standby, and of course it will help, but it assumes that the youth don't actively want to help. They're just small things that they could do if they don't really care that much. But if you do care and you are willing to put real effort into it, what can you do?
That again is a good question, one that's often asked and asked more and more these days. And there are different levels to that. These small things, putting the lights out, not using too much water, trying not to use plastics, or if you are using them, recycling them, reusing them, whatever it is. If everybody did those small things, you're talking about over 7 billion people on Earth, that would be a massive thing then. That becomes a huge thing, and that will make a big difference. So to think, well, there's no point in me doing it, I'm only one person, it ain't going to change anything. Truth is, yes it will, because if everybody does it, it's massive changes. I would take it on to the next level as well. What I would love to see youngsters do now is what my generation really didn't do. People with an awareness of the importance of the environment, or people with a big interest in it, try and get into key positions.
Right.
I've always thought that, let's say for example, the Environment Minister in the UK government, that should be a post for a political environmentalist whose target through life has been to reach that position so that they can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it isn't. It's often an add-on to another job, you know, where you go, you get into Parliament, you're elected in, you get asked to join the kind of cabinet, and you're told, oh, by the way, for now you're Environment Minister, but don't worry about it, do that for 18 months and then we'll give you health. There's more money and more responsibility. Environment Minister should be an absolutely key position, but it's never seen like that. It's never seen like that. So I would like to see politically aware, environmentally aware youngsters aiming for that position, because I think once we can get people in those key positions, that is when real change will take place.
Cool. How and when did you learn to appreciate nature? Because was there really like a moment or a specific thing that made you think, one day I want to be so and so, like maybe the Environment Minister?
I think with me developed a bit like osmosis, because from as early as I can remember, some of my earliest memories are something to do with wildlife. Right. The interest has always been there. As I said, my Tide grandfather, he was a big one for his wildlife. Mum and Dad were both as well, and always encouraged me. So it's always been. There wasn't one moment where I thought, "Oh, do you know what? Wow, this is what I'm interested in. This is what I want to do." I've been lucky. I've had that, and some of the earliest memories. I remember finding a wood pigeon's nest when I was about 4. I couldn't be more than 4 years old, climbing up a tree. I was like a little monkey. 2 eggs in it. That's all they laid. 2 eggs in a messy old nest. And going back to the house, nicking some hen's eggs from the house and putting the hen's eggs around the wood pigeon's nest. Thinking, there we are, 8 eggs is better than 2. And luckily my mum found out and had to go back and get them. But it's things like that are my earliest memories. So it's always been there for me. And I've been lucky in another way as well, in that I've always known that for my career I wanted to work somehow in nature conservation. And I was lucky enough eventually to get a job with the RSPB here in Wales. Did that for 15 years, and I'd still be there now. It was a lovely job, but my boss changed and he and I just didn't get on. He wanted me to go into middle management, give up the field work, being out in the field all the time, and I just thought, I wanted me to sit behind a computer, and I just said, it's not going to happen. And that's how I came to be on TV, really. It was by accident. So I've been really lucky, and as I say, from as far back as I can remember, you're talking about 3-4 years old, it's always been a huge interest in my life.
And that must be shrinking these days if urbanisation is growing cities and then shrinking farmland or green fields. Then surely the amount of people who are constantly exposed to nature will shrink, and they'll just keep recycling itself.
Do you know, that is a problem, I think, is this contact with nature. I think young people are far more aware of things like global warming, climate change. They're far more aware of it, despite the fact that there's far less contact with wildlife than there used to be. I think also time is a key thing. We will all say now it's a lack of time, and people are working very long hours and more demands, but there's always time. There's always time. You can say to an evening meeting, say, listen, do you know what, sorry, I'm not going to be there tonight. I haven't got an excuse, I'm just not going, because I'm actually going out for a walk, because it'll do me a power of good. Or I'm going to spend time with the kids, and I take the kids, we're going to go pond dipping. That's what we're going to do. And if employers don't accept that, well, they're the wrong kind of employers and you're in the wrong job, And I know it's easy for me to say that, but it is true. And I think for the sake of our physical health, for the sake of our mental health, which is a huge issue now, I think we've got to take time out sometimes. And it doesn't matter where you live, I don't think. You can live in the middle of London, you can live in the middle of Liverpool, you can live in the middle of Llandudno, you've got a park nearby. Here, you're very lucky.
Yeah,
you've got West Shore. You've got the you've got the Shingle Beach. You've got the Great Orme here. Conwy Irish could be reserved down the road. So here, there really is no excuse. There really isn't. But even in the middle of London, I lived in London. I was in university there for 3 years. I used to spend most of my weekend in the big cemeteries there, where you had deer and all kinds of stuff. In the parks, sometimes it was kicking around a rugby ball. But I'd stop because a cormorant would go over, or a sparrow would come through, whatever it was. So, you know, we might not realise it, and I don't think we do, but we all need to take a little bit of time out every single day. Leave the phone alone, because that's a big thing now, is this. Leave the phone alone and just spend 5, 10, 15 minutes sitting down, looking, listening, smelling, taking all that in, and it'll do our mental health a power of good.
Well, I guess that the phone would link to, you know, you see everything online, and everyone will, well, a lot of young people will see nature as Australia or as something really far away that's beautiful, but you need to educate people in that there's all this beauty around you as well, and you need to accept that it's equally as beautiful and you can enjoy it just as much, and you need to let yourself walk into it rather than trying to go to Australia on a flight.
Yeah, very much so. It's a funny thing, isn't it? You watch most of the wildlife programs, and David Attenborough's been fantastic at it, and he is God, you know, he really is God. But nearly all of his has been abroad, you know, the wildlife of Africa, he's opened our eyes to that, the wildlife of Australia, of the Amazon rainforest, the Sahara Desert, he really has opened our eyes, and you think, wow, that is amazing. But I work on the watches now, spring watch, winter watch, autumn watch, and the joy of that is that you open people's eyes to the wildlife of Britain. And it's lovely, you know, going up to Scotland, seeing golden eagles. You think, wow, that's amazing. I've seen wild cats or pine marten. Wow, that's brilliant. But to 95% of people, wildlife is what they see in their garden, in the pond, in their local park. And it's just as important, if not more so, to say, golden eagles are brilliant, they're fantastic, but most of us are not going to get to see those. But have a look in your own garden pond. You go there in March, you lift up that big flat rock carefully, have a look underneath, and you'll find newts in there. There'll be smooth newts or palmet newts, wherever they are. And just have a look at those. You just have a look at those. And those have come from the base of your hedge, from underneath the leaves there. They'd come in here, they'll lay an egg, they'll bend the leaf over, put the egg in there, fold it over, leave it in there. They'll spend a bit of time, and then they'll go back into that hedge over there, spend most of their lives over there. You know, so there are little miracles, amazing little things going on. Probably under our feet, if we were outside on the lawn then, there'd be earthworms dragging leaves down and all this kind of stuff. So there's amazing stuff going on everywhere, doesn't matter where you are. And it's so important to connect local people to their local wildlife.
Brilliant, HS2, HS2, should it be scrapped, first of all? Do you think that?
Yeah, HS2 is this modernisation of, well, it's a kind of basically a new north-south train line with various links, isn't it? And it's in England. You know, they say it'll benefit the whole of Britain. Well, it won't. It doesn't affect Wales at all for a start. It doesn't really affect Scotland or Northern Ireland either. So it's an English scheme. Let's get that right to start off with. We need to upgrade our rail systems. We could do with opening up some of the old lines. You know, when I was younger than you, actually, closed when I was about 10, but the railway line used to go all the way through to Carnarvon, and before my time it would go on to Porthmadog, so you could travel over much of Wales by rail. Very few of us do, because it's not always convenient. There aren't enough trains, they're not in good condition, they're cancelled often, or there's not enough room. There are massive problems. HS2 isn't the answer. HS2 will destroy so much ancient woodland, so much pristine, well, not pristine, but fantastic wildlife habitat. You know, it's going to be probably one of the most destructive engineering schemes that we've seen in the UK, massively so. I'd rather see all that money, and we're talking about billions of pounds here, spent on upgrading railways generally throughout the country, so that every part of the country benefits. But you'll find with governments always, they want to retire saying, I did that. That's my scheme, that is. You know, we had the M4 relief road that thankfully has been called off now. But we had a minister called Edwina Hart, and that was her little baby. she left and she thought, there we are, that's my little baby there. Without actually thinking about the consequences on the area, on the people, on the wildlife, or the long term of attracting more traffic again. And that's what you find. That's what politicians do. You know, I don't hold politicians in high regard at all. I really don't, of any party. But HS2 isn't the answer.
Right.
HS2 genuinely isn't the answer.
Yeah. Cool. Now, this is a completely different thing, but it brings it back to earlier you were mentioning about agriculture. Synthetic meat, and not just corn, but completely lab-grown, all that type of thing. Do you think that is the future or an answer?
I think it's part of the future.
Yeah.
I think it's part of the future, and I think one of the things I've seen happening over the last few months actually been a lot of programs about the threats that cows pose, you know, to the planet, really, because of the habitats and woodlands, particularly in the Amazon rainforest and areas like that, have been destroyed to feed these cows. And I think we're all eating too much meat. I'm a meat eater, by the way. You know, I'm not vegan, I'm not vegetarian. I am a meat eater. I buy my meat as often as I possibly can from a local butcher, and the animals are fairly local. They've been killed locally as well. I detest it when animals are stuck in a big wagon. They're transported 8, 10, 12 hours, sometimes even more, to a big abattoir, you know, and that's no way to treat anything. We do need to eat less meat, but there are issues with vegan and vegetarian diets as well, which are coming to the fore now. Soya milk, I don't know if you've seen this, the amount of water that's taken to grow it, you know, it is phenomenal, and we would be causing desertification in many areas if we went down that line. So it's difficult. It's very, very, very difficult. I think we all need to be more careful as to where we buy our food. Try and buy as local as we possibly can. We, for example, at home, we will not eat fruits and vegetables out of season because it's forced. It's come from South Africa. It's come from somewhere else, and it doesn't taste as nice anyway. To be honest with you, you know. Strawberries I'll eat June, July, early August, and they're lovely. They're homegrown, they're lovely. I'm not saying that they're grown in a way that's fantastic for the environment. You can't check every time, but at least they're fairly local. And they taste far better than ones that are grown abroad that are absolutely forced, and they're just like, you know, just like water, balls of water. They're just not. It's
not as big as some people make it out to be, but it's big. So everyone needs to.
Yeah, it is. It's another one of those things where if everyone makes a little difference, just, you know, changes a little bit, you know, at the end of the day, it'll have a huge impact. It'll have a massive impact, you know. And I just think we need to be more active. We need to eat a little bit less. We need to be more careful about what we eat. You know, believe me, I love my chocolate, I love my burgers and what have you, but I'm not eating them every day. I'm not eating them all the time. I'm not living off them. It's a sort of treat every now and again. We think, oh, that's lovely, right? Okay, that's enough of that. So it's not massive differences. It really isn't.
Nature in the future. Do you think it will be considered as important as it is now, or will it be treasured? Because there's a lot of proactivity at the moment, but it can be seen as quite a fad. And do you think it will maintain this upward trajectory? Or?
That's one that is impossible to answer with any certainty. But you know, obviously, I hope it's not a fad. I actually think nature will become more important. You know, we're starting to see what we've been warning about for 20, 30 years now. What's going on in Australia in my lifetime, I've never seen that before. I don't think Australia in the last few hundred years has never seen wildfires to the extent that it's got. You know, it's burning a huge section of the whole country. Bear in mind that the middle of Australia is desert. It's only around the edges you have, well, not life in the kind of desert, but anyway, that can sustain a lot of animal and human life. And huge areas of that are under fire, and that is worrying. You were too young to have seen it, but I've seen massive changes in the weather, huge changes in the weather. You know, floods like we've experienced over the last few years, we would get once every 10 years, maybe once every 20 years. Now it's happening more or less every year, and these are big changes that are going on. So I think we will become more and more aware of what's happening. We're already pretty aware, I think, but we will become more aware because it can affect all of us in lots of different ways. And the one thing that I find hopeful, because if you'd have asked me 5 years ago, am I hopeful? And my honest answer would have been no, not really. I see more and more animals and birds and plants disappearing. I see the Amazon shrinking. I see the Congo rainforest shrinking. I see the Great Barrier Reef will probably disappear in the next 20 years, battered by storms and acidification and all this kind of thing. But the one thing that gives me more hope than anything else is over the last 3 years, seeing young people actually take action themselves and saying, hang on now, this is my future you're wrecking here. And seeing them march through London, march through Cardiff, march through my local town, Newtown, there were only maybe 40 people, but it was 40 more people that were there the year before. Yeah. And seeing all of that, you've got Greta Thunberg, who's a remarkable young woman. She's achieved more in 2 years than any politician in my lifetime. Yeah. And and that gives me hope. That gives me hope. The fact that young people have finally said, do you know what? Enough's enough. If we leave it up to you, old fogies like me, it's never going to happen. So we have to act now, and we have to do it all ourselves. And that is brilliant, and that really does give me hope for the future.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.